On July 19th, at approximately 7:55 p.m., law enforcement responded to multiple reports of gunfire and a potential shooting victim at an apartment complex located on Arid Avenue, near the intersection of Nellis Boulevard and Cheyenne Avenue. Upon arrival, officers discovered 19-year-old Connor Rebolledo unresponsive in the parking lot, suffering from a head wound and holding a firearm with his finger still on the trigger. Unfortunately, Rebolledo was pronounced dead at the scene. The Clark County Coroner's Office later confirmed that the cause of death was a fatal gunshot wound to the head. On a warm July evening, 19-year-old Connor Rebolledo was lured to his death with the promise of sex by Emily, a girl he thought he knew. Connor, a young man with a bright future, had been messaging Emily on Instagram. They'd been planning to meet for a while, but she kept canceling. Finally, on the night of his murder, Connor agreed to meet her at an apartment complex near Nellis Boulevard and Cheyenne Avenue. What he didn't know was that Emily was actually Emily Ridout, and she was in cahoots with her sister Skylar Bailey and their friend Nathan Nava. These three were desperate for money and created a plan to rob Connor. When Connor arrived at the apartment complex, he was ambushed by the trio. They beat him, pistol whipped him, and ultimately shot him in the head. It was that night Connor died at the scene. But how did they know Connor would have money? It turns out Connor worked at a business that refilled ATMs. He often posted photos on social media with large sums of cash, and the trio had seen these posts. Connor Rebolledo, 19, lived a life played out on social media. His Instagram, a highlight reel of a seemingly lavish life. To his followers, Connor was living the dream in Las Vegas, a city built on the illusion of wealth and success. But this carefully curated online persona masked a darker reality. A reality that Connor, perhaps blinded by his desire to project an image of success, failed to see. It was this very image, this carefully constructed facade of wealth, that would ultimately lead to his demise. The investigation into Connor's murder revealed a story of desperation and greed, unraveling a web of deceit and betrayal that no one saw coming. Three individuals, bound by their own financial struggles, emerged as the prime suspects: Nathan Nava, Skylar Bailey, and Emily Ridout. Nathan, burdened by debt, had been struggling to keep his head above water for years. His financial woes had driven him to the brink, making him desperate enough to consider the unthinkable. Skylar, yearning for a life beyond her means, was constantly tempted by the allure of luxury. Her social media was filled with images of a lifestyle she could never afford, fueling her desire to escape her mundane reality. And Emily, her loyalty torn between her sister and her conscience, with the nagging feeling that what they were planning was wrong. But this was just a robbery, right? Nobody actually intended to kill. Or at least that is what the defense will say. But regardless, bad choices lead to terrible and life-altering consequences. Police uncovered a series of text messages, a digital trail of their growing desperation. The messages painted a picture of three people spiraling out of control, their conversations becoming more frantic and reckless as they plotted their next move. The trio, blinded by the allure of easy money, hatched a plan as reckless as it was deadly. They believed that this one act could solve all their problems, but in reality, it only led them down a path of destruction. Their scheme, born out of desperation, would ultimately cost them everything. The plan was simple: rob him and disappear into the neon-lit labyrinth of Las Vegas. Connor, they believed, with his flashy lifestyle and careless displays of wealth, would be an easy target. They believed that Connor would be carrying a lot of money on the night of their meeting. They chose an isolated apartment complex as their hunting ground, a place where screams could be easily swallowed by the desert night. And so, under the guise of a late-night rendezvous, Connor was invited to a date that would be his last. On the night of July 19th, Connor drove to the apartment complex, his excitement evident in the flurry of texts he exchanged with the woman he believed to be Emily. He had no idea he was driving into a carefully orchestrated ambush. As Connor walked with Emily through the complex, figures emerged from the shadows. A struggle ensued. The altercation escalated when the assailant, who had been using a firearm to pistol whip Rebolledo, then discharged the weapon, striking him 3 times. In the aftermath of the shooting, the 3 attackers fled the scene in separate directions, with one of them reunifying with the woman who had been present during the initial attack. Shortly after the suspect descriptions were broadcast over police dispatch, a plainclothes LVMPD detective in an unmarked vehicle entered the apartment complex. She soon realized that a vehicle behind her was mirroring her path through the complex, prompting her attention. As the detective proceeded through the complex, she observed a woman and 2 men who matched the suspect descriptions enter the parking lot and flag her down. Unaware that the detective was law enforcement, the group mistook her for their rideshare driver. After realizing the mistake, they entered the vehicle that was following the detective into the complex, the actual cab they ordered. The detective watched. The cop then proceeded to pull over the vehicle and identified the passengers as Nava, Bailey, and one of Nava's family members. They were then taken into custody. According to Nava's statement to police, he and Bailey were hanging at a friend's place in the complex with a group of people when Connor Rebolledo arrived. Nava claimed 2 people at the gathering owed Rebolledo money and were going to rob him. Nava said he wanted no involvement in the plan. He stated that the 2 men assaulted Rebolledo, but he did not witness a firearm being used. Bailey reported that she was accompanying Connor Rebolledo when suddenly a group of men rushed up and attacked him. She claimed to have met Rebolledo approximately a month earlier at a social gathering. Further investigation revealed that Rebolledo's mother and girlfriend told detectives that on the evening of his murder, Rebolledo received a message around 8:30 p.m. Connor said he would be meeting a friend, expecting to return within 30 minutes. Tragically, this was the last time they saw him alive, according to the police account. After searching the complex, officers discovered a 19-year-old male, later identified as Connor Rebolledo, lying unresponsive in the parking lot with a head injury and bleeding profusely. He was found clutching a firearm with his finger still positioned on the trigger. The gun, later found to be his own, that he brought to the scene. Connor Rebolledo was declared deceased at the scene. An autopsy by the Clark County Coroner's Office later confirmed that the fatal injury was a gunshot wound to the head, which was determined to be the official cause of death. A witness who was in her apartment with an open window reported seeing Connor Rebolledo walking with a woman when suddenly 3 men approached and attacked him. The witness described the men as jumping him, beating him, and one of them using a firearm to strike him multiple times. The woman with Connor stood by and did not intervene. She fled the scene after shots were fired. According to the witness, the assailant who used the firearm shot Rebolledo 2 or 3 times during the altercation. Following the gunfire, the 3 men fled in different directions, with one of them rejoining the woman who was accompanying Connor. During their investigation, police interviewed one of Rebolledo's co-workers, who revealed that Rebolledo had been exchanging messages with an Instagram user named Emily and was eagerly awaiting a meetup. Shared screenshots of their conversation showing Emily making plans and promising to meet him the following day, which tragically became the day of his murder, according to the police report. Upon examining the phones of Rebolledo, Nava, and Bailey, police uncovered a trail of messages between Bailey and an individual identified as Ridout, later revealed to be the person behind the Instagram profile, Emily, with whom Rebolledo had been communicating. Further investigation showed that Ridout and Bailey were siblings. A review of the messages exchanged between Bailey and Ridout revealed that Nava and Bailey were facing significant financial struggles, including eviction from their residence, where they lived with their children. On the day of the murder, Ridout shared a screenshot of her conversation with Rebolledo. She told Bailey that she'd only do something like this for her and Nava. In a different conversation, Ridout asked Bailey how she knew Rebolledo had money. Bailey responded that he always has money because he likes to look flashy and show off. Bailey would draft messages for Ridout to send to Rebolledo. Police reviewed messages between Bailey and Nava, revealing a history of robbery dating back to 2023. Notably, Nava had expressed a desire to change his ways, stating that after the month was up, he was going to stop stealing. On July 16th, the initial planned meeting day between Rebolledo and Ridout, Nava texted Bailey, asking if Rebolledo was communicating with her. Bailey responded, indicating Rebolledo was checking his messages, and expressed her anxiety, claiming her stomach was in knots. 2 days later, on July 18th, Nava and Bailey exchanged texts discussing potential sources to borrow a firearm. On July 19th, around 7:24 p.m., Bailey shared the address where Rebolledo would later be killed with Nava. Additionally, police discovered texts between Nava and a contact named Spaz Out from July 19th, where Nava requested assistance with the robbery. The conversation continued with Nava mentioning Rebolledo's recent visit to the casino and his apparent financial gain. Authorities are currently investigating the identity of Spaz Out as a potential conspirator in the robbery plot against Rebolledo. Connor's story is a tragedy. He was a young man with dreams and aspirations, but the pressure to conform to an idealized online persona and the desire for promiscuous sex led him down a dark path. His untimely death has left a void in the hearts of his family and friends, who now mourn the loss of a life that was cut short by the relentless pursuit of worldly validation. Let his death serve as a cautionary tale, a reminder to be mindful of what we choose to share online and to be wary of those who may seek to exploit our vulnerability.